We're live.
Hey, thanks, Larry the Liberty Guy. And this is Mike Stenhouse back with you for a new week of In the Dugout shows. And today, you're going to hear a lot from your host today. Opening monologue, pregame comments, however you want to phrase it. A lot to say. I'll work backwards. The final segment today will be a very interesting topic. There's a big push in Rhode Island and many other states to tax sugary drinks. Supposedly, they want people to be healthier. But there's all kinds of things that are unhealthy, but yet they want to pick on sugary drinks. And it's failed when it's been tried in other places. We're going to talk about that. We have two guests, a local food wholesaler who wrote an opinion piece in the Providence Journal 10 days ago, and a national figure who often works with the American Beverage Association. He's written some opinion pieces when they've tried sugary gas, so much on the TCI gas tax, sugary taxes on drinks in Connecticut and DC, and he submitted testimony to the committees here in Rhode Island. So we'll talk about how that is regressive and harmful to low-income families. Mario Lopez will talk how that's especially harmful to the Hispanic community. And he's even got a special message in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking viewers. And of course, I agreed with everything he said, not having any idea what he said, but anyway. And then Eli Berkowitz, who's the Little Roadie Foods, will join us as well. All right, tomorrow, so I'll tell you what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk a little bit about TCI, what we did today, and I'm going to show you our first ever Liberty Bytes, a new little short video clips on issues that infringe upon our liberties. And our special guest on this Liberty Byte segment is Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist. I'm going to talk a little bit about some brief thoughts on this Juneteenth phenomenon. I'm going to spend a little bit of time Stenhouse on White House. My thoughts on this blatant hypocrisy. I'm not going to call it racism, but this blatant hypocrisy by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island about this all-white beach club that he and his wife belong to. And then we're going to spend, again, this is going to be our top. We're going to spend more time, and I'll be just on comments today. I'll show you a video clip. Critical race theory. Listen, this is so important. I can't even tell you how important this is. It's not just public policy. This literally is the indoctrination of our kids in an effort to purposely change our great American culture and to overthrow our great American democracy and turn it into some kind of democratic socialist form of government. Folks, I'm serious. And we have to stop them from indoctrinating our children. So I'm going to spend and the question we're going to explore, and we're not going to let up on this question, and we're not going to let up on this issue. But I've now heard enough that perhaps it's the Rhode Island Department of Education itself and its director, Angelica Infante Green, who may be pushing this stuff down into the school districts across our state. That's the question. We're going to investigate it. And we're going to find out the answer. We may not find out this week, next month. But this issue is going to be around for months and months, if not years to come. And our center is pledged to stay on this topic, critical race theory, whether, especially in schools, until it is rightfully stamped out of our society. There's no place in our society, and certainly has no place being pushed upon kids in schools as part of an organized curriculum. So more on that. Okay, tomorrow, we're going to have back Claire Stottmuller. If you remember her, she was the beautiful Rhode Island resident opera singer. To this we've come. the 1940s award-winning opera, the aria to This We've Come. The words are so relevant. They're scary relevant to what's going on today. What happened in European socialist and communist nations and Eastern Bloc nations back in the 40s, it's happening here in America now. It's unbelievable. So we're going to talk to Claire about some more example parallels between that song and those video images she put together and reproducing it, and today. And also, tomorrow also we're gonna get into a lawsuit. The Gatsby Project, who's a friend of ours, that's another group I founded. Clay Johnson is the chairman and runs it now. He's going to join us along with a couple of attorneys. One, a Rhode Island-based attorney, great constitutional lawyer, Joe Larissa, and he worked with a out-of-state firm, the Liberty Justice Center out of Illinois, and they brought a lawsuit on behalf of the Gatsby Project and a couple other plaintiffs against some campaign finance laws. And speaking of Sheldon Whitehouse, it's been his goal to try to uncover and expose the donors to groups like our center and groups like the Gatsby Project and many others, because he just knows that these groups are effective in beating back the left-wing agenda. So this is another effort to get donors exposed, to have them, what's the term, when you expose somebody's name and address so that people can take action against it, you dox them. Yeah. They want donors to conservative groups doxed. So Gatsby Project was the plaintiff. We'll talk to the lawyers and to the chairman of Gatsby tomorrow about their lawsuit. There were all oral arguments early last week in this lawsuit. So we'll hear about what happened. Then, of course, Thursday, second half of the show, Dr. Boston. And but before that, he's back. Larry, the Liberty guy, is back with another follow-up. He did this story years ago. Another district school reading list that you won't believe. Another article Larry, the Liberty guy, has written. I just noticed today, Larry, the Liberty guy's Larry Gilheeney, Larry LG. Larry, the Liberty guy's LLG. So it's kind of the same. We just add the extra Liberty in there. So we still got the LLG or LG. So Larry, popular demand. I mean, we got literally millions of requests, and we need more Larry, the Liberty guy. So we're bringing him back. It's that simple. Okay. Time for batting practice. And it's a long batting practice today. So I got my yellow shirt on today. So I decided to go with my gold Green Bay Packers cap. For those of you who know, I'm a lifelong fan. No, I have no idea. I don't even really care what happens to Aaron Rodgers. If he stays, great. If he goes, let's just get something good for him. Either way, we got a great team and a great season coming up. But I am avid Green Bay Packer fan. So you're going to have to bear with me today. I know I'm in the middle of Patriot land, but this is what I do. I go against the status quo. So, and I do it in every act of my life. Okay. Transportation and Climate Initiative, the TCI gas tax. As you're watching this show, the Senate is probably voting, the full Senate on the floor, as to whether or not to advance the bill and move it over to the House. There is a House version of the bill that has not had a hearing yet. Last week, I told you how we sent an email to all the committee members before they passed it in the committee. We sent an email to every senator today, asking them not to vote on the TCI gas tax. You've heard all the arguments on this show before from me and from other guests we've had on, but I'm going to play for you now a clip that we just recorded earlier. It's the first of our new series of clips called Liberty Bytes. And we spell it B-Y-T-E-S. It's a play on words of how many public policies take a bite out of our liberties. But we use BYTS because it's digital, right? We're doing digital interviews or digital commentary. So we kind of do a little double entendre there with Byte. So I'm going to play for you right now. First, let me show that. Liberty Bytes, you can find Liberty Bytes right on the Ocean State Current. Remember, the Ocean State Current is going to become an increasingly important part of our center's mission. All of our In the Dugout shows are posted there, or most of them anyway. Other commentary from will be posted there. And you can see right at the top of oceanstatecurrent.com, we have a new section called Liberty Bites. And if you click on that, it'll take you right to the page. And we interviewed Grover Norquist, the great anti-tax warrior from Americans for Tax Reform. It's about 7 minutes, but I want to play the whole thing for you. All right, because this is important in our fight against the transportation gas tax. And this is the link I sent to every senator today. So our premier of Liberty Bites with Grover Norquist.
Massachusetts and Rhode Island, both of whom's governors thought this up. So it's a pride. It's pride driving this, not science. Pride.
Take a bite out of
liberty, freedom.
Welcome back to Liberty Bites. Mike Stenhouse with you on how certain public policies tend to take a bite out of our personal and economic freedoms. In this case, we're talking with Grover Norquist from Washington, D.C., president of Americans for Tax Reform, about the Transportation and Climate Initiative, which lawmakers in Rhode Island will be voting on this year. Grover, in general, when government policies like this try to force mandates and usage mandates on people, how does that generally infringe on people's liberties?
Well, for starters, you're not asking people what they want to do. You're telling them what they have to do. And if you're trying to solve a problem, you're not saying, here are 3 options. You're saying, we've picked the option. This is the one we think would be best, not the one that's best with your life or your family, but we've picked it for you. Oh, and by the way, we're going to use yesterday's technology to solve a problem that's emerging over 100 years. Each one of those really limits the options that people have and confuses their future with the political demands of the past.
And that really is an infringement on people's, like you said, people want to be able, in America, we should live the lives we choose unless we're directly harming somebody else. And we should be free to make the transportation or energy choices we want. So you're right. So when you tell people to do, you're really infringing on their freedoms is ultimately what it's all about, right?
And legislation should always deal with the rule of law equally applied to all people. But on some of these issues, when you artificially increase the price of gasoline or create shortages, which get the prices up, you are picking winners and losers. You are saying to people who live in the suburbs, your life is getting more expensive. People who live on farms, small business, as you will, and you really are saying to some people, you're going to be carrying the load on this, and other people aren't. And I, as a politician, favor some people over others. No law should have that in front of people's minds when they vote.
Good government should work for all the people, not just some. You're right, and those with a special agenda. Let's build upon that for a second, and let's talk about economic liberty to keep the hard-earned money we've earned or business people earn through their businesses. A tax on gas, or limiting the available supply of gasoline, which is Transportation and Climate Initiative, or what we call it the TCI gas tax, is going to do, is going to come directly out of families' pockets and directly out of the small business owners' pockets, whether they transport goods, whether they drive to and from work, whether they're taking their kids to school or going shopping or going on a vacation. We're directly punishing people's pocketbooks, and that hurts their economic freedom, right?
Well, it does. And, what if we decided 100 plus years ago to limit whaling, or rather to ration whale oil because that was the energy of the day? That sounds stupid in retrospect. But more recently, when natural gas was very expensive, but was lower in carbon, and if you wanted to have less carbon, you would want more natural gas, there were people who opposed fracking, which gave you the more natural gas, which is why our carbon footprint in the United States has declined more rapidly than most other nations, because of innovation, new ideas, new products, new ways of doing things. And politicians are always passing laws based on things they've seen in the past, on rules they think, oh, that would have been a nice rule they've had 20 years ago, so let's put it in now. 20 years from now, Not so much. I tell my 13-year-old daughter, when I try to explain, maybe you're not understanding this, I say, remember what you think of 10-year-olds and how stupid you think they're? Oh, okay. When you get a few years ahead, you look back at yourself and realize what you didn't know. So that self that you that doesn't know ought not to be making laws for the self you're going to grow up to be.
All right, last question for you. And I want to build on what you just said there. That's awesome. That, we're a tiny little state.
Mhm.
How do you square that lawmakers in Rhode Island think there's something they can do about global climate change, whether that's raising or lowering temperatures, and square what you just said, that even without mandates, America is leading
Yeah.
the world in reducing its carbon footprint through good old-fashioned American ingenuity, through technology. So how futile would it be for Rhode Island to impose all these economic and freedom burdens in pursuit of a global strategy in which we can have zero impact? Just final thoughts on that.
Of course, 14 states wanted to be in the TCI agreement. And then as they looked at what was actually going to be done, it's one thing to say, we should do something. And 14 said, yeah, I want to be one of the guys who's seen as caring and doing something. And then when what we're going to do became very specific and not alterable and not at all in the best interests of people in Maine or Vermont or Pennsylvania, there are only 2 states left in. So
Rhode Island and Mass, right?
Massachusetts and Rhode Island, both of whom's governors thought this up. So it's pride driving this, not science, pride. And all I can suggest is that no one's a complete failure. Some people can serve as bad examples. So it's possible that Massachusetts would like to serve as a bad example, but Rhode Island can let them do that all by themselves. And then other people can learn, don't do that. Rhode Island doesn't have to sign up to be part of a bad example.
Right. And I just asked lawmakers to also consider the competitive disadvantage our border store, gas stations, and convenience stores will be at if we have a significantly higher gas tax. In Connecticut, which just earlier this month flat out rejected the TCI gas tax, if they're not imposing it, just think of that competitive cross-border shopping imbalance. Grover Norquist, thank you for joining me on Liberty Bytes. Thank you also for your sage comments, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Mike, thank you.
All right, for Liberty Bytes and the Center for Freedom and Prosperity, this is Mike Stenhouse. Good day. I love what Grover said there, a couple things. First, winners and losers. One of the winners we haven't talked about much. The money they're going to get from this tax, you know what they want to use that for? To subsidize the green energy, expensive green energy cars that all these elitists want to buy for themselves. So they're basically taking your money so it costs them less to buy green or electric cars. Similarly, what should outrage you as a motorist, gas tax paying motorist, yes, we have to pay some gas taxes, which should only be used to upgrade bridges and roads, the same infrastructure we used to drive our cars on. That's fair. A usage tax for driving your car is fair. But in this case, do you know that Rhode Islanders will be paying taxes under TCI? And a lot of that money is going to go to Massachusetts so they can upgrade their mass transit infrastructure? That should outrage you that our money is being shared. And as Grover said, only 2 states left. And we have a habit in the state when Massachusetts does something bad, like raise the minimum wage excessively or pass marijuana bills, that we feel like we have to follow suit and do the same bad thing. Why can't we just let Massachusetts, like Grover Norquist said, be a bad example on their own and let them shoot themselves in the foot? Why do we have to handicap ourselves as well? It's crazy. It's ridiculous. All right, so that's the Transportation and Climate Initiative. We'll let you know tomorrow how the vote came out. I think we know how it's going to come out. They don't send it to the floor unless they know it's going to pass. But we did have a number of Democrats over the year, last 18 months ago, say they're opposed to it. A couple in the Senate. We'll see if they hold their votes and end up voting against. I'll be just curious to see what the final vote is. All right, let's go on to the larger woke agenda. And again, it's just, this agenda is just moving forward at breakneck speed. And I really don't think that the people who are pushing it know why. As we've said so many times, being woke is like wearing blinders. You only see what your woke masters tell you, and you ignore everything else out there. Now, you're going to be amazed when I tell you and show you later on how that's how they see us. Like we're the ones living in a land of make-believe. So, the woke agenda reached one of its pinnacles last week with the declaration of Juneteenth Day as a national holiday. Okay, first, on its own, recognizing the end of slavery in this country, yes, is a noble cause. On its own, worthy, most likely, of a national holiday. The problem is it's not on its own. It's not a disconnected event. This is just part of the appeasement of the radical left, the Black Lives Matter movement, the woke agenda, critical race theorists. This was not done. If it was done purely for recognition purposes of something that should be recognized in this country, then Barack Obama or some other president would have done it in the past. But by doing it now, naming this holiday in the middle of all this other subterfuge that's going on, it's clearly just an appeasement to the woke left and to the Black Lives Matter left. And that diminishes, in my mind, the value of this holiday. On its own, this would be a very worthy cause, separate from all this junk that's going on in our country. But when it's done clearly in an effort to appease these activists, these Marxists, it's hard for me to get fully behind it. And I also, just like I asked Ray Rickman here in Rhode Island when we changed it's not that much different to changing Rhode Island's name and removing and Providence Plantations, the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. We did that clearly to be in the woke flow. And again, it diminished the value of that gesture. But I use the word gesture on purpose. Is it just the gesture? Is there a return gesture we can expect from Rhode Island minority advocates now that they've got the state name change, or from national Black Lives Matter or other critical race theory activists now that they have their holiday? Is there any return gesture? Is there any bargain here? Is there a grand bargain that we're going to see fewer riots? We're going to see fewer talk of systematic racism. We're going to see less of a push of critical race theory in our schools. Is there any bargain, or do we just give stuff away as an overt political gesture on something that shouldn't be politicized and not get anything in return? Is there any grand bargain here? Well, obviously, a lot of the left thought that the Juneteenth holiday, which was celebrated this past Saturday, was an open invitation to riot and loot and destroy. I mean, there's an article that showed that there was shootings and riots and police involvement and shutting down of protests or marches all over the country on Juneteenth, on this first Juneteenth this year. So again, it just shows that when you do something in appeasement, and as a gesture of appeasement, it loses its impact, it loses any real value. And I just cannot be psyched about Juneteenth Day. I recognize and agree with the premise, but the politicized way in which it was done this year really put a damper on it. There was an article also about how wokeness is taking over the Pentagon. Just the outrageously wimpy ads for recruits for our military service. Did you see the Navy admiral being grilled by the lawmaker last week who's pushing critical race theory books as the recommended reading for every sailor? Did you see the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying the biggest threat the U.S. military faces is climate change? Folks, this is not logical. This is not common sense. This is, as Rush Limbaugh said, this kind of liberalism is a disease of the mind. It really is. So how about some woke hypocrisy? Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. So here's my Stenhouse on Whitehouse clip. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is facing renewed criticism, over his membership in that all-white private beach club where he and his wife belong, and his wife owns shares. Is the major shareholder. And while they can be critical of everybody else and call everybody else a racist, when they are involved in a club that is overtly promoting what many would call racist policies or practices, then somebody like Sheldon Whitehouse downplays it and dismisses it as, oh, come on, this membership based on race, this has a long tradition in Rhode Island. What? Slavery had a long tradition. It was evil and it was wrong. This kind of policy, long tradition or not, is wrong. Can you believe the hypocrisy of this Senator Sheldon Whitehouse? A long tradition in Rhode Island. Got to give Go Local Prov and Kate Nagel some kudos for exposing the story, getting the interview, putting the senator on record, and boy, did he stick his foot in his mouth. And now Black Lives Matter and many other minority groups in Rhode Island are openly criticizing Senator Whitehouse for the comments he made. Listen, if this guy had any courage, if he cared any less about money, him and his wife, we know it's not his decision whether or not this club maintains certain policies or practices. But if those policies or practices go against everything he stands for, then that senator and his wife should resign from that club, and they should divest their financial interest in that club. If you have any principle, if you want to ever be taken seriously again, Senator Whitehouse, that is what you and your wife need to do. You look like a fool trying to play the anti-racist cop on the one hand, but yet refusing to take a stand on principle on the other. And then there's the media. And then there's the media. So let me make this a little bigger. The Boston Globe today puts an article out basically attacking the critics of Senator Whitehouse, because now it's only a claim that he belongs to this club that doesn't accept blacks. We all know it's a fact. Now it's just a claim. And here's their headline where they defend the senator by showing how he defends, and they put a quote up there that is probably not true. I don't know the truth of what's going on at that club, but Nobody has flatly denied this, but shame on the Boston Globe for themselves being hypocrites and coming to the defense of such a hypocrite on this issue of racism as Sheldon Whitehouse. Now, the New York Post did a story as well, and between Go Local, there was all kinds of reporting on this. Here's a question that came up in one of the articles. Ask if such clubs should continue to exist at a time when the country is having a racial reckoning. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse replied, "It's a long tradition in Rhode Island, and there are many of them." All right. Let's break that down a little. Many of them? I'd like to know if there are others. I don't know of any others. But that's not the point. The question is, should they exist? Sure, they should exist. I mean, sure, they could exist. It's a private club. They can do whatever the hell they want, whether they're right or whether they're wrong. It is a free country. And if they get abuse for it in the media, in social media, from their membership, from protesters, then that's what they get for having that kind of policy. So sure, these clubs can exist, even if it's dead wrong. What should not exist is Sheldon Whitehouse's membership in such clubs and their families' stock ownership in these clubs. Not if you want to be taken seriously as a politician. Sheldon Whitehouse, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, demonstrated again the complete hypocrite that he is. I want to go back to that story I jumped around when I showed you the Pentagon, wokeness taking over the Pentagon. I was looking at another story, and again, this is Joe Biden claiming that white supremacy poses the greatest threat to America's national security. I mean, just think about that. The president of the United States, and you've heard the vice president say the same thing. And now the Pentagon is following suit and literally trying to purge. They're searching. We showed you a headline last week. They're searching the social media of armed services members. And if they see someone who supports Trump or disagrees with the liberal critical race theory or other woke narrative, they're literally demoting them or kicking them out of the military. They're calling them extremists, domestic terrorists for holding a different political view. What the hell is going on in this country? These people are sick. Extremism. How do you define extremism? They want to purge extremism from America's armed forces. My goodness, extremism is holding a different political view. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can always hurt me, according to the far left. All right. Now for the final topic of commentary today. I don't want to believe this, so I'm going to keep a very, very open mind. This is Angelica Infante Green, the Rhode Island Commissioner of Education. I interviewed her. As some of you know, I used to, and I'm going to start again doing interviews for a very popular cable political show called State of the State. And I interviewed Infante Green probably in late 2019, shortly after she was named commissioner here in Rhode Island. But now many people are telling us, you've heard it on the radio, I've heard it privately, I've seen some evidence, that she is really the one behind this critical race push, and that the Rhode Island Department of Education RIDE is pushing down critical race theory curriculum items into school districts. Now, I don't know that this is true, but we're going to investigate. This is going to be an in the dugout, informal investigation. We don't have investigative reporters. We don't have lawyers on staff. But if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're a student, or you're just a concerned citizen, you have any information about whether or not the Department of Education and Angelica Infante Green, the commissioner, is behind this critical race theory push in our state, we'd like to know. We're going to start compiling the evidence, commenting on it. It's going to be a regular feature. As I said it earlier, we are not going to give up on this topic until they stop trying to indoctrinate our kids. And by the way, you can sign a petition, rifreedom.org. You'll see right at the top. I think if you just go /stop indoctrination, it'll get you there too. But either way, the top of rifreedom.org, there's a petition you can sign to tell lawmakers. Not only will we be amassing signatures to present to lawmakers at some point, but every time someone submits that electronic petition, an email goes out to 6 or 7 education officials saying, stop the indoctrination of our kids. No politics. Keep politics away from our kids in school, whatever that politics is. I had a discussion with a teacher yesterday. Hopefully she'll be brave enough to come on our show next week. I think the last day of school is this week. She's waiting for that day to come, and then she's going to let me know. But what she was telling me was frightening. Oh, in the middle of the year, old history books were being thrown away, and new social equity, critical race theory, not by name, but new books that continually teach victim identity, oppressed versus oppressor, painting a one-sided view of history. I don't know if, and this is another thing we're going to invest. I don't know if traditional American history has underplayed the value of certain African Americans in American history. If that has, that needs to be corrected. But what I certainly know is that America was not built on racism, and that only giving a view of American history through the eyes of woke, Marxist, Black Lives Matter type activists is not the proper way to teach history to our kids. No one's denying that we should teach Black American history, but everything needs to be put in its proper context. Everything. So we are going to be demanding I think we will be demanding, based on evidence we collect, answers from the Department of Education. We're going to look at some more evidence, but we're going to stay on this. We're going to name names, and you stay with us. We'll give you the updates. We're involved. We've had parents groups, all kinds of parents groups on this show. We're going to have more. And in fact, a couple of those parents groups are on the firing line in the next 2 nights. So let me tell you about this, just in case you wanna weigh in. In South Kingston, Nicole Solis, you know her. She's the hero mom that spoke out. Well, she's on the agenda again tomorrow night. We don't know what they're going to say about her. She doesn't know. I mean, tonight, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock tonight at the Curtis Middle School cafeteria. There's a link. You can freeze the video here, and you can look at that link. Or Larry can put it in the comments, but there's a link if you can watch online, or you can go in person, even better. Tomorrow night, Bob Caradillo, who we've had on this show a couple of times, is going to be presenting his case. He has uncovered a lot of actual evidence of this critical race theory stuff in Westerly schools. He'll be speaking out tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at Westerly Town Hall. And again, if you want to participate or view online, there's the link. So I just want to let you know that parents are out there fighting. We hope to have both of them on our show. Let us know if anything important happens. Now, typical Rhode Island. Did you know parents all over this state, all over the country, are putting in records requests wanting to know, what the hell are you teaching my kids? Or what are you planning to teach them? And these school committees and school districts and superintendents don't want you to know. They're trying to sneak this under the radar without your knowledge, giving you some half-baked answer that obfuscates the issue. I'm convinced they're trying to sneak this under there without parents or the public knowing. And these records requests can expose some of those motives. So they don't want to fulfill them. They're getting many of them. So guess what they're doing? The superintendents are petitioning lawmakers to change state law on open records request. In Rhode Island, it's called APRA, the Act on Freedom of Information Act. I say APRA. I can't even think what that stands for. Help me out, Larry, the Liberty guy, on this. Anyway, I'm just blanking out on what the whole acronym means, but it is the Freedom of Information Act in Rhode Island, the equivalent of that. And they want to change the law so that school districts don't have to respond, or respond in as timely a manner, or respond at all. I don't know how they want to change it. And even the American Civil Liberties Union seems to be indicating, yeah, we'll agree to some changes to it. I don't know if we want to go as far as the original superintendents originally proposed. So this is what they do in Rhode Island. When they don't like a law, they just change the law. If it becomes too inconvenient, if the truth becomes too inconvenient, then we'll change the truth. Great reporting on this on legal insurrection. I don't have time to go there and show you those articles because they got one more area I got to comment on. But they're feeling the heat, folks. The petitions you've been signing, the social media, this show, John DePietro show, the parents mostly speaking up at these school committee meetings. The parents have got them on the run. They're scared and they're looking to rig the system so they don't have to deal with these parents by changing the law. Can you believe that? They're going to change the open records laws in this state. All right. As a way of introduction of our guests, the busybody know-it-alls think they have a solution to solve obesity in our state. And let me bring you to the website. And they want to impose a 1.5 cent per ounce tax on drinks that contain sugar, as if sugary drinks are the only thing that makes people overweight. They're not touching French fries or other fried foods. They're not touching greasy hamburgers and, chips or anything like that. They're going after another snack. They're going after sugary drinks. So according to there's a website to stop this. Stop the beverage tax in Rhode Island. Stop the Bev tax. Stop the RI Bev tax. They're saying it will lead, this is lobbying firm, put this up, lead to $100 million in Rhode Island retail and restaurant sales, a loss. Could impact the hours or jobs of part-time grocery workers, over 4,000 in our state. Think of the convenience stores as well. And again, think that in a time of we're recovering from pandemic, they want to lop another tax onto people. Just think about the inanity of that. So there are two bills. Here's the first bill in the Senate, bill number 327. Lead sponsor, Senator Valerie Lawson. Is she the NEA or the AFT Teachers Union executive? I think she is. Bunch of other Democrats sponsoring the bill in the Senate. This had a hearing in early May. The bill was tabled. That doesn't mean it's dead. It doesn't mean it's alive. It just means we don't know about it. In the House, Bill 5715, sponsored by Representative Barros. And again, a number of other Democrats also had a hearing in early May, also was tabled. Again, we don't know what that means. The one thing we do know, which could be good news, is that the sugary drink tax, that revenue line, was not included in the General Assembly's budget that they released last week. That could mean that they're not going to move forward with these bills. We don't know. We just don't know. It could mean they're going to wait until the fall session or later this spring session. We don't know. But proponents are pushing this. This is happening in many other states. The bills are in limbo. It's not in the budget. And we'll see what happens. And joining us now to discuss the sugary tax drink legislation that is being proposed in Rhode Island, we have two guests today. Eli Berkowitz, owner of Little Rhodey Foods, a Rhode Island-based food wholesaler, of course, and Mario Lopez, who's the president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund, who has written a number of opinion pieces on other efforts in other states and localities to impose these government slap your hand for doing the wrong thing kind of taxes. Eli, let's start with you. You had an opinion piece in the Providence Journal just about 10 days ago. As you're talking, we'll bring up the op-ed piece, but tell us, what is your number one reason for opposing this sugary tax?
Well, I believe it's an unfair tax to begin with. They target beverages, sodas and whatnot. I mean, there's so many other foods out there that have sugar in there. And when you pick on beverages, when you go down the beverage aisle, you're not going to just see soda. You're going to see other drinks, healthy, also watery, with water, that have low sugar and no sugar. So the consumer has many choices that they have when they go to the supermarket. My concern is, why are you picking on beverages? There's so many other foods out there with sugar in there that should be a concern. I know you talk about obesity and diabetes, but there's many other foods that are out there that have to be a concern from our perspective. Plus,
I got to think French fries, right? I love my French fries. I can still buy those though without a tax,
you
right?
know what? You go to McDonald's, get a Diet Coke, the Big Mac, and supersize the fries. What does that do for obesity is what I want to know. So it's a little unfair. And the other thing is, to be honest with you, there's healthy drinks out there that have minimal amounts of sugar. There's some that we distribute. I don't know if I can mention their names. There's one that's called Zyn, Z-Y-N. It has turmeric and curcumin in there. It only has 4 grams of sugar for the whole bottle. But that would be taxed as it would be like a can of soda that might have 50 grams of sugar in it. So again, you're taking a drink that's healthy and not allowing it to be in the marketplace without paying 25 cents more for that bottle. And that's a concern for the consumer.
Mario, we're going to come back and forth, but Mario, your op-eds have focused on the regressive nature of the tax, how low-income families will be paying relatively more, compared to their overall income. Talk about that. Talk about the Hispanic community. Why are you opposed to this drink tax?
Yes, well, this is one big reason. There are several that I know we'll get into, but the regressive nature of this tax is just terrible, right? I mean, there's, they start off typically, say, oh, well, it's only this amount. It's only 1.5 cents per this or that. But all that stuff, really adds up. And the fact is that, people of lower income, it places this a tax like this places a heavier burden on them than it does people who are more well off. I mean, that's just, the reality of this. We have, the hard price in general. People, lower income folks, spend more of their family budgets on food and drink, and they're going to have to pay a larger share of this income.
And I think, as you pointed out, don't you say that this is the kind of thing as you're looking at the extra prices people will pay for just 6 packs, 8 packs, 2-liter bottle. This is the type of thing that could drive people over a state border to buy something in another state, couldn't it?
Well, that's exactly what's happened. I mean, there were, research done by a combined study from Stanford, Northwestern, and I think the University of Minnesota on the beverage tax increase in the city of Philadelphia that happened a couple years ago. And one of the things they found is that, first of all, people didn't stop drinking these beverages that they were targeting. Right. So from that perspective, it didn't even work. There was no change in the caloric or sugar intake of consumers based on that tax. And then secondly, what they did was people went and they still bought these drinks. They just bought them in a different municipality that didn't have the tax. But the thing is, when people go out there to, go outside of the municipality to spend their money, they're not just going to do that for the beverage. They're going to buy more of their groceries overall there. So the small businesses in these communities then have less customers, and it creates more of a burden on them. It costs them business. It costs jobs. I think 1,200 jobs they found in the city of Philadelphia, unnecessarily just given away for no reason. And again, for something that didn't even work.
Eli, I'm going to play here a 30-second clip. There's a Stop Rhode Island beverage tax at the movement going on in the state. And this is an ad they put out with a small business owner, a woman, I think, from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So so to follow up on what Mario said about potentially losing jobs and hurting bottom lines of small businesses like yours, listen to this ad and then tell me, what you think about it. So let me share my screen. I'm a little clumsy at this, but we'll get it done here. Here we go.
My name is Tanya Vega. I'm the general manager of Galito Restaurant in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. You've got politicians pushing a new beverage tax that will really hurt us. It's really going to affect our business. The prices are going to quadruple, and that obviously affects the consumer, and then it affects the business. This will cost restaurants thousands of dollars, and we're barely making it as it is. There are better ways to address food insecurity than a tax that will hurt working families and that will cost jobs. We just can't afford that.
Eli, we're coming out of a pandemic.
My name is Tanya Vega.
Right, we're coming out of a pandemic, and now lawmakers are considering adding taxes, not just on families, but on you, cost to you and business to you, small business. Talk about it from an employee jobs perspective.
So like you said, we just came through a pandemic. People are worried about their jobs. They're worried about money, having enough money to buy food. We had such an issue with food supply during the early part of the pandemic. I don't know why legislators or whoever wants to put this bill through, what they're thinking about. I mean, that woman there is absolutely right. From a restaurant perspective, they sell fountain drinks. That price, we understand, is a bag in a box of a particular soda would be like $100 per bag. It makes so many gallons of finished product. It would go immediately to $157. How much are you going to charge your customer to come in to have a meal and now have a glass of soda? Don't forget, those restaurants have to make their money by selling more product. Just like I do in my business. I have to do more volume to keep up with the larger companies to be out there. And in Rhode Island, it's a segmented market, it's a small state. And, potentially that could hurt our business and the volume that we have to sell to be profitable. So from a business perspective, whether it's myself, Grand Square by Skis, Yacht Club Soda, we're all being impacted. And everybody says, oh, it's not going to hurt the businesses. It absolutely does. It hurts businesses, restaurants, and consumers. So I don't know why the information that's being provided to the legislators is not very clear or accurate. And that's a concern I have. So again, we're all being affected.
Mario, from a moral perspective, isn't it insulting for government to slap your hand when people freely choose a behavior, or in this case, the food product that they want to consume, and the government says, no, you are wrong for doing that. We're going to levy an extra tax on you. Isn't that just downright insulting?
Well, certainly, right? But let's assume for a moment, right, the best of intentions for these legislators. Okay, we have an obesity problem. We have, this, that. Okay, fine. That's something. But, rather than do the actual hard work of looking at root causes and how to get to these things, right? That's a lot of work that goes into that. It's just, there's a temptation here to just like, oh, well, I know, we'll just, tax this or that. And that'll solve this problem. So even if you kind of give them the benefit of the doubt on their intentions, you still come to a very bad conclusion, again, on something that the evidence shows places that have tried this, it just doesn't work. Right. But they don't understand that. They want an easy, I'm going to push this button and solve this issue and move on to the next thing. And that's just not the reality.
Mario, I know you've been looking at this from a more national, you've commented on other states on this. Eli, if you know anything here, chime in as well. But where is this coming from? I mean, obviously this is sort of like, this is a proposed tax that's being put forth in a lot of states. Who's behind this? I mean, we know like a guy like Michael Bloomberg is behind, trying to take away Second Amendment rights. Is there some group, somebody behind this effort across the country? Is anyone aware?
I just think it's a group of people not quite sure which ones that want to tell you what to eat and how much to eat. It's almost like
busybodies.
Yeah, you can call them that. I don't know what you want to call them, but it's almost though they want to tell you where you should go, what you should do, and how you should eat. And that's just not what we're here in America. You have freedom of choice. Consumers should drive the bus, as far as I'm concerned, as to what they purchase and what we manufacture. But as an industry, a beverage industry, maybe Mario can add to this, we make drinks that we believe, again, we take lemonade, like for example, we have that. We put less sugar or no sugar. Then we find other healthy alternatives that we have to manufacture, we want to manufacture. The one thing we have to be protective of is, one, we make a quality product. And if we use a sugar-free product in there, that we're not creating another health issue with whatever we're using for ingredients. So the end result is we want to make sure it's something that's good for the consumer, they enjoy it, and it's also healthy for them. Yep. And that takes time to do, and it's not an easy process.
Yeah, but not everything is healthy, and that's okay, right? People can have choices. So Mario, wouldn't the proper role, before we get into, we'll end up with what's going on in Rhode Island, but wouldn't the proper role of government just to be use the bully pulpit to advise people on the potential dangers of consuming a lot of any kind of sugary substance or any kind, whatever the case may be, and educating the people rather than telling us through these incentives and disincentives of taxes how to live our lives? Wouldn't that be a better role for government if we just try to provide more education to the public?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we see this, I think that the example that everyone knows across the country, right, is the FDA. And they used to have this like food pyramid they used to have this like food pyramid where they try to inform people, educate consumers. And then they revised it. They found, based on updated science and things like that. Now it's a slightly different model of like My Plate or whatever. And I think that there's a role for that, right? Like we want consumers to be educated. We, want people to have the best information available. But at the end of the day, going after low-income people, going after small businesses who, I don't have to tell Eli, right, have very tight margins and things like that. I mean, that's just not the way to get at this issue, right? Or issues like it. And so I was talking about before. I mean, doing actual hard work of researching root causes and trying to figure out how to address it from that perspective, that's real legislative work. Not, we're going to just tax everything and then problem solved, right? It doesn't work.
All right. Before I go back to Eli with the final question, Mario, I'm making the mistake of asking a question I don't know the answer to. Do you speak Spanish?
I do. I'm fluent. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to give a message to our Hispanic viewers out there, a short message to them in Spanish?
Sure. Este impuesto que quiere pasar en Rhode Island es terrible para los negocios, para las empresas chicas, es muy malo para los consumidores. Las personas de ingresos bajos van a tener más costos y les hace más daño a ellos que las personas que tienen más dinero y más en su bolsillo, ¿no? Para pagar.
I agree. Eli, as I mentioned in my open, the two bills, the House and Senate bills, were both heard in the first half of May, held for further study. We don't know what that means. The General Assembly did not include the sugary drink tax in the budget.
Right.
But you never know around here. Those bills can come back at any time, either later this session before, July 4th, or in the special session they're planning to have in the fall. What do you think the status of this push to tax sugar drinks is in Rhode Island?
Well, I hope right now it's being held for study, as they say, that it's going to just stay there. But you're right, it will come back again. And we have to prepare as an industry, both consumers, supermarkets, beverage manufacturers have to keep calling and emailing and writing to our state reps and House senators that we're opposed to. But it's going to come back. It's been on the docket, I think, for like 5 years, 6 years now. It always keeps coming back in a different form. And I think this year they targeted, the SNAP program. That was their way of thinking of how to get it through by saying, oh, we're going to provide so much money, additional money to SNAP. So again, we have to be vigilant as businesses because it has a large effect on us and consumers. Well, legislators know, hey, we're not in favor of this.
All right. Eli Berkowitz, Mario Lopez, thank you for joining me in the dugout and having a great candid discussion. I wish you good luck. Thank you. All right. So again, thank you to our guests. Again, you see, I mean, this, the common denominator, whether it's critical race theory, whether it's the TCI gas tax, whether it's the sugary drink tax, whether it's Sheldon Whitehouse's hypocrisy, or whether it's even Juneteenth parades, celebrations turned into riots. These elitists on the left want to impose rules on you because they think they know best, and then often they're the ones who break their own rules. It's just a beautiful thing to see. It's a beautiful thing. This is how big government, this is the nature of big government, hypocrisy, ninny-nanny busybodies who want to control our lives. If you think of that in everything we talked about today and we'll talk about in the future, you will see that's pretty much the same theme in everything. So I know we went a little long today, but for In the Dugout, Mike Stenhouse, wishing my Packers good luck, wishing you Godspeed. We'll see you next game.